Niti's question, she's feeling peaceful in her meditation. Deep peace. No sense of body consciousness, no sense of time. Lasts for some time, a few minutes. Thought arises, she comes back does her inquiry, comes back to that deep state of peace. Is this the correct practice? And is there anything she can do to take the practice deeper still? Nita, I want to ask you a question. What do you do? How do you get to this peace in the first place? What is your process? Tell me.
I use my breath to dive deep inside. It takes 10 to 15 minutes to settle down, and slowly, thoughts start ceasing, and I come to a point where there is complete stillness, emptiness. I observe that stillness. I can feel myself. I am there. I am not the body. I can feel it very clearly, and it is very peaceful. And then I ask the question at that moment, who is observing that peace? At this point, I am not able to dive deeper. So I wanted to ask what further I should do. Or maybe it'll take more time for me to dive deeper inside.
Mm-hmm. So you asked me a question, and I asked you a question back, yeah? And then you gave me an answer. I've now got two questions for you. How do you use the breath? You said you quieten the mind by using the breath. What do you do there? That's the first of my questions.
When the breath goes inside, I am aware of the breath going inside. And when it comes outside, I am aware, not being the breath. I mean, I'm not the breath at that moment. I'm just observing that breath. And slowly, when the mind quietens, the breath, it happens automatically. I am not even aware of my breath that is happening. I'm just aware of that stillness. I mean, as the mind settles down to that stillness or...
Right. So basically, you're mindful, you're watchful of the breath.
Yeah.
That's
yes.
it.
Yes.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And then after 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes, depending on the day, I'm guessing, your mind becomes very still. Deep peace. That's phase one of your practice. Phase one of Niti's practice. Everybody, I hope you're listening. Phase one of Niti's practice is mindfulness of the breath. She's also aware that the breath is not her essence, but she's mindful of breath. Very lovely practice. And then you get this deep stillness. And then what happens? Explain to me, please. You asked a question, you said. What happens? Where does this question come from? What are you doing? Please explain.
As the mind starts settling down, I observe that stillness, there is peace, there is relaxation, there is no move. I mean, I can see that it is stillness. Earlier, I used to hear the teaching or read it about the stillness. Now I experienced it. Everything was still. It was still. And I had really no awareness of whatever is going around me, surroundings, body, nothing, no consciousness. I mean, I was not conscious about the surroundings and my body and all. I was just in that stillness. I was observing that stillness. And I was observing, that means I was not that stillness. So I was asking the question, who am I who is observing the stillness? So at that point, I was not able to go deep inside
So what
the
happens at that?
to the source. Yeah, yeah.
What happens at that point?
It the I mean I the place where I arrived, the stillness just stops at that place and it doesn't deepens inside. I mean, um,
In that place, are
when
you?
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, Nita. Do you want to carry
Okay.
on?
No, it's okay. You ask the question, please.
So you've got to that deep place of stillness. There's no consciousness of body, mind, world, but there is, or time, but there is consciousness.
Yes.
You are there, aware
Yes.
of the stillness. What is that you? Now, what you are, basically, you're doing the practice perfectly. There are different ways in, and you are doing in my view, a very lovely way. You are practicing. What you are is what you are. What you are is what you are. It can never be known by the mind. The thinking mind can never discover what you are. What you are is what you are. This is knowledge. Not when we say jnana, the supreme knowledge, supreme realization, as opposed to mundane or worldly knowledge in the mind and the intellect. This knowledge is your being. It is known by being what you are. So when this question is asked, who am I? What am I? The answer is I am. But the answer is not the words I am. The answer is what those words signify. That beingness, which is not perceptible as an object. It's not objectifiable. You can't know it like you can know an object, like you can know the body, like you can know the mind, like you can know the world, like you can know silence, the absence of body, mind, and world. But you are. So the question is just beautiful device, beautiful, beautiful, powerful device to turn your attention into yourself. Everything else comes and goes. Body comes and goes. The mind, the thinking, the thoughts, the experiences come and go. The world comes and goes. The experience of a silence that you're aware of comes and goes. What are you? And then the intention, when the mind is made subtle, when you're doing your breath practice, when you're doing your breath work, you said your mind becomes calmer, steadier, more peaceful. It's becoming more subtle. As the mind is made more and more subtle, it becomes fit for inquiry. And that subtle mind, when it turns in within itself, it becomes the self. So what do you have to do to deepen your practice? Very little. Very, very little. In fact, at that point, to do the breath work as you've been doing, beautiful. Ask the question, who am I, as you're doing. But what I would like you to do is I would like you to ask the question, who am I, with the least amount of effort possible. Almost so you're not asking it. Without words. You use the minimum amount of effort thinking possible. And when you look within with the minimum amount of effort possible. Grace, Bhagawan is calling you. He wants you to be with him. Allow him to pull you towards him. You ask the question, who am I? He will then pull you in. If the thoughts come back, you're doing it perfectly. Whatever device you're using for you clearly like the breath. So when the thoughts come, you can go back to the breath if you need to. Sometimes you won't need to. Sometimes just the awareness of the thought itself will kill the thought. Sometimes the thought vasana is too strong, and you need to use the breath. Sometimes it's even too strong for the breath, and we'll need to pray or do something else, chant. But I think you're very, very right for this, Niti. Very right for this, if you're doing this practice like this. With the minimum amount of effort, please. What am I? No strain, no stress. He'll pull you in. I'm so pleased with your question. I hope you don't mind me saying it. I hope I'm not being patronizing when I say this. I'm so pleased with your question. And I'm so pleased with to hear about your practice. It's wonderful. Very wonderful. So please, if you'd like to keep us all updated, let us know how you're doing. Is that okay for you, Nita, as an answer? Okay. So notice what Nita was doing was a two-part practice. It doesn't have to be like that. We find our own way. We find our own way. Really, Bhagavan gives us a way. And that's our way. And that's what we do. For many of us, self-inquiry will become a two-part practice. The first part is making the mind subtle, calm, tranquil. Second part, what am I? Who am I? When the mind is subtle, tranquil, self-inquiry is very easy. But when the mind is coarse, overly active, rajasic, tamasic, it's like stitching fine needlework with a crowbar. The mind's just too coarse. It just makes a mess. You get a headache. But the mind made subtle using a beautiful object like the breath. This is a, in my opinion, very, very lovely way. Very lovely way. But you see what works for you. You see what works for you. You see Nita's taking her time. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And then, only then, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 40, only then, when the mind is subtle, then you're taking your crowbar mind, your coarse mind, and you're sculpting it into a fine needle. And using this fine needle, you can knit the most beautiful piece of needlework. But otherwise, you go straight for it, it's like a crowbar. Mash everything up. Create a mess. Get a headache. Some people can go straight to self-inquiry. If that's you, then you will know that. If you need the breath, you will know that. If you need the breath first, before self-inquiry, you will know that. If you need a mantra first, you will know that. If you need to chant and do devotional practice before that, you will know you'll need to do that. If you need to do hatha yoga before that, you will know this. How will you know? Use your intuition. Use your wisdom that's in you. Think about it. Feel. Take the moment to feel. What do I need? What do I want to do? And which step do you enter? Do you enter on practices at the body level, like hatha yoga, chanting? Do you enter at practices on the mind level, like repetition of a mantra, praying? Do you enter at practices on a breath level? We're getting more and more subtle, you see? Or do you go straight to self-inquiry? Where do you enter? Where do you enter? What level are you at? How coarse is your mind? You will know. Because you will say, you know what? I really love doing hatha yoga. So then do hatha yoga. You'll say, you know what? I really love chanting. I don't really care about hatha yoga. I don't really care about the breath. Not for me. I like to do the chanting. Somebody else is saying, well, breath work's okay, but I like the mantra. I have my mantra. Someone else will say, yes, I like the breath. And someone will say, forget all of that. I just want to devote myself to whomever, whatever. My version of God. The version of God that I'm drawn to. You do that. All these things will make the mind subtle, fit for inquiry. And eventually, you will come to silence and happiness and love. And when you come to silence and happiness and love, just enjoy the silence, happiness and love. That's it. After some time, you'll realize this silence, happiness, peace is all well and good, but it's not liberating me. I feel happier now. I feel more peaceful now. But this is not liberation. Now, what's happening? Now there's a desire to go deeper. Now the question arises, what am I? What am I? What is this I? This is now you are becoming motivated and fit for self-inquiry. You have gone through the gunas, tamas, rajas, sattva. You've cleansed the dull, negative, tamasic energy, maybe. And you've cleansed a lot of the rajasic, active, frenetic activity. Rajas and tamas are the movements of the mind. And your mind is made more and more still, more and more sattvic. Enjoy it. You deserve it. It's the holiday that you deserve after all that sadhana. But it's not the end of the journey. You soon will become sick of sattva, peace, because it's not liberating. Then you want to turn within. Discover what you are. Abide as the self.